there's some expectation that there's going to be someone else that comes and saves you.
Mm.
There's not. There's not. There might be people who are willing to give you the tools. Girls shaking ass or interviews with drunk people. It's like when you're constantly filling your brain with that, it's like your brain turns to mush.
Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm psyched to be on here, man.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. So, for people who don't know you, can you give a little brief description on what type of content you put out?
Yeah. So primarily it's self improvement content. I went through my own self improvement journey a year or two ago. And in the past 6 months ish, I've kind of been trying to walk people through that same journey so that they can level up their life and feel good about themselves. So yeah.
What was life like before you started the journey?
Um, I guess you could call it pretty normal. I grew up regular family, regular high school experience, all that stuff. I suffered with some mental health stuff for a lot of years. Um, and then came off to college, and I'm in my junior year here. Um, Came off to college and kind of just wasn't enjoying myself. I was in like a weird mental space where I kind of like got all the partying and stuff out of the way pretty early on. The college experience, you know. Um, and then it got to a place where like a lot of my friends from my first year here just kind of dropped out or went to other schools and stuff. And so I was just kind of doing my own thing, but I wasn't really feeling great about myself because I wasn't, working toward anything. I wasn't taking care of myself the way that I should have been. And then, long story short, I got dumped, and that kind of set me along this journey to be able to validate myself and to feel good and at peace on my own, as opposed to feeling like I need that from other people. You know?
I think your story is very relatable. And man, dude, that's what happens. The first, well, I don't know if it was your first relationship, but the first relationship ends, and then you're like, shit, I got to get my life together now. Like, here we go.
Yeah, all on my own. What do I do? Yeah.
Right. So then, in terms of you making content itself, what you started the self improvement journey, was there just a point where you're like, you know what, let me just share this with people?
Yeah. So it was probably summer 2022. I got started. I was just writing tweets. I was just kind of, I guess, mapping my own journey. And it never really particularly picked up the pace. Like I wasn't getting much traction. And then eventually I joined a mastermind of people who are all creators. Um, and through that I was kind of pushed to actually start like video content. Short form. Um, and yeah, that was pretty interesting because I was like, at first I definitely wasn't in any facet comfortable in front of the camera. Um, but I guess yeah, it was more just like I had gone through the shitter realistically. Like I'd been through it, and along that journey to actually become comfortable and at peace and confident in myself and take care of myself and work towards something that's bigger than myself. I was like, I've learned a lot of stuff that had I heard earlier on in this journey would have really helped, so that's what got me started with the content creation, which let me tell you has been a journey. I was on TikTok for like 5 6 months. Um, and I really, really didn't gain much traction on there. I amassed maybe 2,500 total followers in that time. Had a couple of videos that popped off, but nothing super crazy. And then, yeah, I switched over to Instagram primarily, toward the end of January, and things seem to be going well on there for me. So it's good to be able to actually share my knowledge with a greater base of people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you're going back to, like getting into the video aspect of content creation, it's difficult at first for most people. Some people are probably like naturally good at being in front of a camera, but I know I wasn't. And for I think like a year and a half total, I didn't even think about starting a YouTube channel. I would just like along my self-improvement journey, I'd just be like walking throughout my neighborhood and I'd start recording myself. But what I would do is I'd literally walk around. I'd get out of my house, start walking, and be like, all right, I want to record a video when I'm walking. But it took me at least 20, 25 minutes to actually click the record button. And then I was worried when I clicked the record button if someone would walk by and look at me when I'm talking, oh, they're going to think I'm weird. But then at the end of the day, you come to realize that, like, it doesn't really matter if someone sees you doing it. You know what? If someone might see you and they might judge you, and then 5 seconds later they're gonna move on with their day because who really cares, right?
Yeah. That's exactly what I preach. You know, it's like in the grand scheme of things, you're a tiny little fraction out of these people's day, you know. And if they're gonna judge you, so be it. It doesn't matter. Like they go on with their day, you know, and more than likely they're not even judging you in the first place, you know. Everyone's
Exactly.
on what they have going on in their own head to spend their time actually judging other people for what they're doing, you know.
100%. You did a video about how dealing with trauma can elevate your life. Can you go in depth with that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I would love to. I think we kind of live in a world today where people use their traumas, their problems, whatever issues they have going on in their life, you know, to justify not taking action and to justify not, I guess, overall being where they want to be in life, you know. And I think that's a really interesting place for society to be at because it's detrimental, especially to like the younger generations, you know, because this is the world that they're growing up in, and they're being taught that, okay, you've dealt with these things that aren't your fault. You've dealt with these traumas, for lack of a better word, and that makes your situation that you don't enjoy, that you don't feel comfortable in, that you don't feel happy with yourself in, that makes it okay, you know. And so what I like to tell people is that you can look at that in a totally different lens, you know. Just because that's what society is teaching these days, you know, and that's what's become the norm, that doesn't mean that's how you as an individual have to treat your traumas and your issues, you know. Um, because it's very difficult to kind of break the social norm, and to, especially when you've been raised in an environment where those things are justified, you know, where it's like, okay, this is how it is and there's nothing you can do about it, so learn to live with it. It's hard to break free of that. But to look at it in a light of like those same things, like I'm a strong believer in the fact that everyone was put on this earth for some purpose, one purpose or another, you know. And oftentimes that purpose is found and their sense of direction in life is found through dealing with those issues, you know, their pain, their suffering. That's what leads to the greatest breakthroughs and the greatest potential and purpose, you know. And so that's why I think it's so important for people to actually, like, that's why I preach what I preach, is because if you go about life using all those problems to justify not being where you want to be, not only are you doing a disservice to yourself, but you're doing a disservice to the world around you. You know, you're depriving the world of all of the beautiful things that you could bring into it, you know. Um, but yeah,
I completely agree. You know, it's for the trauma aspect and the problems that we deal with, it's so much easier to just put them off. But when you deal with them, you have to realize that you're overcoming all the things that you've had to go through and then pushing yourself and elevating yourself to another level. So then you're in turn going to be able to help other people.
definitely. I couldn't agree with that more. And I'm not sure if you read David Goggins at all.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of what he talks about. And honestly, like, I've been reading through his books as of late, and it's taught me so much, you know, because it's like it just goes to show how a person from the absolute worst situation, the absolute depths of a childhood, you know, can use the things that they suffered through, you know, to become great and to then use that greatness to help other people, like, lift them up, you know.
David Goggins was a huge inspiration along when I first, like within like the first year of me starting all this stuff. I would, you know, since he's a huge runner, what I would do is he was the one who helped me solidify the fact that when I'm running, I pick a destination, right? Let's say it's 1 mile, let's say it's 7 miles. Whatever I decide to pick, no matter what happens, I'm finishing that. And I think he instilled that into me. No matter how much, no matter if I'm shaking, if I haven't started bleeding or anything, but no matter what happens, right?
Yeah,
Whether my legs and my feet feel like they're falling off, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to go. And he
yeah,
instilled that into me. And what I actually do sometimes is in those moments when I feel like I can't go anymore, I look to the right of myself and I visualize him running next to me, being like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You're going to stop right now?" And then him like encouraging me. And, I think he's a light to the world, man.
yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. That's a really cool story. Imagine him running next to you. That's awesome. Um, and I think a lot of people need a person like that in their lives, just to show them the limits of what's possible, and like give them that helping hand. Is like, if I can do this, then why can't you? Um, and that especially comes into play, like we were just talking about, when dealing with traumas. And to some degree, that's the, like, I don't want to call myself a role model, but that's the kind of role that I'm trying to play in people's lives. Is like, listen, I was right where you are, and here's how I got out of it. And there's nothing that's in your way of doing that same exact thing, except for your own mind and the belief that you can't do it.
And what we have to realize is like so much of the traumas and stuff we have that stem from childhood and all of our life experiences, there's a lot of the time where it's not your fault, right? It was outside conditions, people treating you wrong, maybe you had bad parents, whatever it is. But even though it wasn't your fault, you are still responsible for dealing with that so that you can then make your life a better place. Because like you were talking about before, if you don't deal with that and you just accept it, oh, this person did this to me, that it's whatever, right? But this is just what I have to deal with.
Right.
You're going to stay in that limiting mindset and you're never going to get to where you want to be.
No, you're definitely right. And I think there's a very important distinction to make there too, between fault and responsibility, because so many things happen to every single person every day, that aren't their fault. They had no control over it happening to them. But there's also this sense of like, because it's not my fault, I'm not responsible for it. And to take like, the moment that a person takes responsibility for their life, they have a say in where it goes. They have a say in how things turn out for them. Um, and I think that's the important distinction to make. Is, yeah, that happened to you, and you had no role in why it happened to you or how it happened, but you are absolutely responsible for how you respond to it and how you move forward with that thing that happened. Because I don't know, like, you can take the saying like, diamonds come from coal, like the pressure from that is put on on a lump of coal turns it to a diamond. And that same lump of coal, though, could just stay a lump of coal, if it was in a different situation. And I think that's why it's important for people to adopt the mindset that they are responsible for their life. you know
And it's not, and I think because of how society grooms us, we're all so afraid of responsibility. Even if it's going to pay off and it's going to help us in the long run, taking responsibility is such a difficult thing for so many of us.
No, it certainly is. And I mean, the reason for that, I think, is because people don't want to be in charge of their lives. Things happen to them, and it's easier to just say, okay, this is how it is, as opposed to, okay, what can I make out of this? Because it takes grit and it takes determination to change your life in any facet, in the gym, or your mindset, or in your job or business. In any facet of life, it takes like serious grit to actually bring yourself from the ground up. And I think to some degree, like you mentioned, society has groomed us to be soft, pretty much, and to think that the easy way is the best way, and that the path of least resistance is the path that you should take. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think that if you can forge yourself in fire and use the bad things that have happened to you in your life, and use the experiences that you've had, good or bad, to become a better version of yourself, then that's what it means to be living, and to be happy, and to live a life that's fulfilling.
Yeah, it's so much easier for And it's like I'm not perfect. I still suffer from trying to escape my problems at times.
Of course.
If in a relationship with someone, whether it's a friend, whoever it is, we're arguing or whatever it is, or someone did me wrong. It's so much easier for me to that thought to come into my mind, or for that to happen, for me to pick up my phone and just go on Snapchat or whatever, escape it, instead of actually feeling that emotion, just sitting here and being like, okay, why do I feel this way? What can I do to change it? And should I actually sit here and experience this emotion so then I can overcome it? And the answer is yes. It's so much easier to just distract yourself. But see, what happens with that is when you distract yourself from that one problem, you then do that for all of your problems. Then you have all these problems in your mind that you just never deal with, and they will affect every single area of your life for the rest of your life until you become aware of it and try to change it.
Definitely. And I think there's two things that I want to touch on there. The first is how, like, the strength that, or I guess the power rather, that habits have over you, whether they're good or bad. Because what you just mentioned, getting into a confrontation with someone, friend or family member or whoever, and then deciding that you'd rather distract yourself than face it, that's a habit, and when something becomes habitual like that, it seriously is detrimental to your ability to actually deal with those problems in the long run, because it's like human nature is to follow the same routine over and over and over. And so if you are, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, using that, you used the example of using your phone, going on Snapchat to escape that situation, then that's what is going to become hardwired into your brain. That becomes your automatic response every time you're put in a situation like that. Um, and the danger of that is, like, it affects, like, every relationship that you have down the road. You could be 16 years old and you get in a fight with your mom or your dad, and that's the method that you use to escape from that. That will be reflected in your relationships with a significant other, for example, when you're 30 years old, unless you make a conscious choice to change it. You know, which kind of leads me to the second thing that I wanted to touch on, which is conscious awareness of your actions and your thoughts. Which I think is so incredibly important, and I don't necessarily talk about it as much as I'd like to in my content. But that's a shift that I'm hoping to make soon, because I think, especially in the age of social media and instant gratification and immediate dopamine hits every morning when you pick up your phone, it's very easy to kind of lose sight of like the present moment and just being here and conscious and paying attention to the little things, to paying attention to your mind and, I don't know, eating a meal or walking up the stairs or whatever it may be. It's just it's become commonplace to almost be in a zombie-like state while going about those daily tasks. Um, and I think the reason that that's detrimental is because those moments when you're not distracted, when you're not occupied with anything else, especially a phone or a video game or whatever you'd like to insert X here, but um, when you're not preoccupied with those things, that's life. That is you experiencing life. And it's crazy to see, like, how much that's been drowned out, in today's world.
It's insane. I mean, I was literally editing a podcast the other day, and I caught myself like every 10 minutes just going on my phone for 10 minutes, and then like the second time I did it, like I like slammed my phone on my desk, and I jumped back. I was like, I'm losing my shit right now. What am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
So
crazy.
it's scary, right? Because you don't even, a lot of the time, you don't even notice it, it's become so second nature. And like, it feels like a part of your day, or it feels like, I don't know, it's not even a conscious recognition, like, oh, I just spent 10 minutes scrolling on social media or longer, especially with the rise of short form content, which is like a serious issue. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because so much of it is nonsense. It's girls shaking ass or interviews with drunk people. It's like, when you're constantly filling your brain with that, it's like your brain turns to mush, and you can't afford to, like, the people that platforms like Instagram Reels and TikTok and YouTube Shorts, the audience that they target is kids. You know, it's 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds to 25-year-olds primarily, I'd say. And it's like that's the future of our world. You know, that's our future lawyers and doctors and politicians. And it's like, if their brains have been filled up with nonsense, garbage since the time they were a kid, you know, it's like, how can we expect them to function in society and function in the world, you know? Because it's hard to first of all be constantly distracted and not in tune with yourself. But those distractions are just things that are so detrimental to your subconscious wiring. You know, it's like scary stuff, man.
I honestly think we're gonna be going through a pretty dark period over the next 30, 40 years in terms of, people working and relationships. Like I think things like marriage and like long-term companionship overall, not that people aren't going to get into relationships and stay with each other, but I think a lot of people are going to like move away from that. And a lot of people are, it's going to be the norm, and it probably already is now, to, be working, whether let's say you're working 8 hours a day, and every 20 minutes you notice yourself going on your phone to escape that. And that might be an indicator of, okay, maybe they're not in the right type of job. But overall, what I'm trying to say is I think we're going to be facing a very detrimental, because we are like that. We are the generation of distraction. Like that is just us. We're just distracted all of the time from everything. And that's why I feel like there's so many more people now that don't have any depth to them, because like nobody's done any introspection to even learn about themselves and the world. So everyone's out here walking around, and everyone's just going through life just like,
Yep.
yep, yep.
The depth of their personality is, oh, did you see what so and so posted? You know, yeah, it is scary, and I think you're definitely right to say that we're gonna be going through a pretty dark period of time, in terms of just the way that, like, I guess how smoothly society runs, and I think we've already started to dip into that a little bit. But the reason that I think it's such an inflated issue these days is because there's next to no regulation on it. You know, obviously a parent will, I don't know, set screen time limits on their kids' social medias and so, but at the end of the day, it's like these kids, especially kids, they're not learning that accountability for themselves. You know, like if it was up to them, they would just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, you know, because they're too young to understand the way in which that actually works, and the way that, like, it's an addiction. You know, it targets your dopamine centers, and by waking up every morning and scrolling through 100 TikToks, it's like you're completely degrading your ability to actually do things that take a long time and hard work to do, you know, because you become addicted to that instant gratification. Because why would you do something that takes months or years of planning and dedication and hard work when you can feel that same immediate gratification that you would feel when that hard work paid off in a matter of seconds on your phone, you know? And it's like there's in terms of like what the government's done in any facet, there's next to no regulation, you know? And I know there's been talks of TikTok being banned in the US, but I'm sure that's still a few years out at the least, you know? And it's not even for the right reasons, you know? It's because supposedly China's harvesting our data, as opposed to because the youth is becoming mindless, you know? Scary stuff, man.
Yeah. It's also pretty interesting that, the government's worried about China stealing our information, not, as if they're not taking all of our information as it already is.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's because in terms of like, the companies know people's attention spans and being destroyed, people's lives are being destroyed, but man, they're making money. Who gives a shit, right?
Yep.
That's our world. And it's sad to see and sad to say, but I mean, the thing is just to become aware. Like, the awareness is what you need of how the world works. And you can become aware of the world and have the mindset of like, oh, like all these companies and everything, all the food I'm eating, all this is like, it's all shit, it's all bad, whatever. But you can also like look at it in the sense of like, yeah, a lot of this stuff is bad, but like now that I'm aware, like I have control over my life. I can I can decide to not eat McDonald's every single day anymore. I can decide to not scroll for an hour every day. And I think going back to like, I mean, just the phone aspect in general. I mean, I've heard so many talks about like so many people who just don't use. They get the most difficult things done in the morning,
Mm.
and they don't use their phone for that entire time. And I remember back in high school, one year specifically, I had this great routine where I would when the first like hour and a half of my day, I didn't even look at my phone, right? I would get up, I'd shower, I'd do everything I need to go. And once I got out of the house and once I was like at school, then I was like, okay, I can check my phone now. But I think when we look at our phone, just this, it's like our humanity and our consciousness is just, it's just like, I don't even know how to word it. It's being destroyed when we wake up to existence because we were in 8 hours of just like sleeping, and maybe you're aware during your dream, but also you're in the void of like, all right, like nothing really exists right now. And then you wake up to this conscious experience. And you're like, shit, let me start scrolling. And
Yeah, yeah, right.
it's like you will have zero control of your life.
Yeah, because it's crazy. Like I've actually like that's something that I've been very conscious about lately is like how I feel when I'm on my phone scrolling. It's like it sucks you in, man. Like it's terrifying because it's like no no thoughts, no consciousness really. Like and then you just snap out of it, and it's been a half hour. And it's like where did my time go? Like that is so scary. But I also wanted to touch on what you mentioned about like kind of the importance of a morning routine. You know, because I've been on that wave for a while now too, and it's like it is of the absolute utmost importance. Because the quality of your day, or so I've heard, is determined within the first 10 minutes of you waking up. And if you, I don't know, if you wake up and you make your bed and you get some sunlight, you know, like the quality of your day is going to be so much higher as opposed to you immediately roll over and you're scrolling through the news or just nonsense, like just bullshit. Like it seriously makes a difference in the quality of your day. Um, and so like, yeah, what I've been doing is like the first hour and a half of my day is just no screen. Like I wake up and I'm blessed enough to be on like my college campus. So there's a gym, I don't know, less than a half mile away. So I wake up, I go to the gym, and by the time I'm like actually awake and alive and conscious, it's like I haven't just spent the most vital moments of my day in wherever, like there's no thoughts. Like I get to spend time with myself and experience actually living life before I kind of dive into, because it's hard working a job where, well, not working a job per se, but being so present on social media, especially with the growth that I've seen in the past couple of weeks. It's like it's very difficult to kind of separate like the majority of your day from being involved with that, and I'm sure you feel the same way. But it's like when you can just take a little bit of time in the morning to be with yourself and to not distract yourself immediately, it works wonders, man. Like it really does. And like probably the number one message that I would have for anyone watching this is like, if you're going to implement anything in your life, it's get some sunlight on your face before you start scrolling on your phone for the day. Like it makes the biggest difference in the world.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the mornings where I wake up and the first thought I think is, wow, I'm grateful to be alive today. That compared to waking up and being like, shit, I remember that problem I had yesterday and I got to deal with this today. And it's just your thoughts too, or just, it's a game changer for what you decide to think about when you first wake up.
Definitely. Um, yeah, and it's I think for a lot of people that's a very difficult thing to do. Is to detach them. So like to recognize yesterday is the past. I can't change it. Thinking about it's not going to do anything for me. Um, and so they kind of get trapped in that loop immediately, which is why I think a lot of people spend so much time on their phone, like absorbed with no thoughts, is because they don't want to deal with those things. But at the end of the day, and I don't want to like disregard people's mental health issues and the trials and tribulations that every human being goes through, but at the end of the day, it comes down to making a choice of whether you want to live a life that you're proud of and that you feel content in and enjoy, or if you want to keep doing things the same exact way that you have been doing them, that you like, that is proven time and time again doesn't work for you, you know? Um, and I think it's a very sad thing because a lot of people out there don't even recognize that there is that choice, you know? They just, they've become so accustomed to this is how it is that they expect that is how it must be forever, you know? Um, so yeah, I think it's a good thing that you and I are working to change that. Seriously. Like it makes more of a difference than you know.
Right. 100%. How important is it for people to believe in themselves?
Beyond important. I think I think before anything comes your identity. You know, if you believe that you're a piece of shit who was born to suffer and to deal with bullshit from your parents or your friends or a bully at school, if you believe that that is who you are, that is who you will become, you know, forever. But if you can make the shift to believing that, like, I'm not sure if you're spiritual at all. I get the vibe that
100%. 100%, bro.
um, but like I feel like there's a lot of people who don't even realize, like, you and I and everyone else on this planet, we're made of the same material as stars are. You know, like we are divinity. Like we are the universe experiencing itself. And there is so much beauty in that because that means that just to be here and just to be human, that a person is deserving of all of the great things. You know, and it's just that, like we've been talking about, has conditioned us to believe that this is how it is, so this is how it has to stay, and distract us from the fact that we are actually that eternal, beautiful piece of the universe, you know? Um, and so if you can make the mindset shift to believe that that's who you are and like get to explore that side of yourself a little bit, then you'll become pretty convinced that you can do damn near anything, you know? And it all starts with the way that you think about yourself and the way that you talk to yourself too, especially. That's a huge thing for me. Like my self-talk, that's something that I think is so important because even if you even if you're like thinking in the back of your head, like, I can do this, you know, I can start this business, I can get into this school, whatever it may be, you know, if you're saying things to yourself or justifying a joke or whatever it may be with, oh, I'm so dumb, or that was stupid, like any of that shit, it's just like it your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and when you tell it is reality, you know? So it's like if that's what it's hearing all the time, that's what it will come to believe. And um the reason that's so important is because our subconscious mind accounts for pretty much everything that we do. You know, like our conscious thought, I think it's like 3% of our day is conscious. The rest is just subconscious functions repeating itself. And when your subconscious is wired to believe that you're a piece of shit, whether it's from what your parents told you or like I said, a bully at school or whatever you may think, like that's who you become unless you make the conscious choice to actually give a shit about yourself and to believe that you are capable and that you are worthy of living the life that you see so many other people living, the life that you dream of, you know?
Right. We like you just said, we don't take into account that our brain does not know the difference of reality and what you're telling it. Like if you say to yourself all the time, "Oh yeah, I'm dumb," even if it's in a joke, like
Yeah,
your brain is affirming, "Okay, yeah, I'm stupid, I'm dumb," right? So I mean, that's something I've become very aware of. Of like, I make sure that unless I like consciously know I made a bad decision or did someone wrong, and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was a stupid thing I've done,"
right.
but I don't ever say to myself or say in a conversation with someone, "Oh yeah, I'm stupid." Like it just doesn't even come into my mind because I know that my mind is going to start to believe that if I say it enough, and
Definitely.
that's what people don't realize.
And I'm sure like that's the type of thing too that takes practice, you know, like it's not one day you just wake up and you're like, like I'm
Right.
great, I'm the man. Um, but it's so important that for people to become conscious of that, like because there's so little thought that goes into it when a person is saying those things, um, and without bringing some conscious awareness to it, it's like you don't even realize what you're doing to yourself, um, and at the end of the day, that's what it is. You're doing it to yourself. Like even if, say for the sake of the example, you didn't necessarily believe that you are a person who's deserving and worthy of a good life, but you made a conscious attempt to not talk to yourself in a shitty way, you know, those belief systems, they would change in a relatively short period of time, you know? Um, and it doesn't even have to be necessarily telling yourself that you're the man or that you're going to be rich one day or whatever it may be. It's just cutting out the negative, you know, um, shedding some light on the darkness.
Yeah. And going back to what you said about the like us being the universe and like just the fact that we're alive is like such a blessing. It's like you ever see those pictures where it's like the they have like pictures of trees and the tree branches look like your veins, and then the nebula of a star looks like your eyeball. It's like there's
Yep.
so many things within us that are similar or like exactly the same as other things in the universe. So it's like you have to realize how much of a magnificent creation that you are.
Right.
And just the fact, literally just the fact that you're alive means you have so much potential.
Yeah. No, it does. And I think that's something, at least in my experience, was that I started to become more conscious of when I started going to the gym, because it's like when you are actively taking steps to improve your body and take care of your body, like you get so much more of a feel for who you actually are in that sense that you just talked about. Um, and I think it's very difficult for people to kind of discern, like if you're just a normal person living a normal life who hasn't, you're going through the motions. Those aren't things that you think about. You don't like maybe you've seen those same pictures, but you don't resonate with it particularly. Because it's not what you've brought into your conscious experience. It's not something that you genuinely feel. Um, but I think it's super important that like people start actually working to see that type of thing, you know, and on the front of like how intricate and amazing our body is, like we are our body and mind, especially like we are the greatest supercomputers that have ever been on this planet. Um, and it's crazy because like, yeah, and I'm not saying that I'm necessarily tapped into my full mind, but it's like when you just go through the motions and you're not taking steps to grow and to develop into a higher version of yourself, it's crazy how much of that mind's potential is going to waste, how much you just is untapped.
Yeah, and it's and like we are like the greatest supercomputer. It's like you're not aware of everything that's going on in your mind, but it's like your mind is like literally doing the fact of like creating reality around you with your
Mhm.
senses and everything. And like you have your subconscious mind, your unconscious, your conscious mind, and all these different components in there that like most scientists don't. We don't even know what the hell's going on for
Right.
most of the parts of it. Um, but I mean, it's just the fact that you have that is like incredible, and it's like it brings up the thought of like people say like, oh, you're not your thoughts, but it's like really think about it. It's like you're going throughout your day, like you're running off of a lot of subconscious stuff, and you have thoughts pop into your mind throughout the day. What something happens, someone says something, then you think about that, whatever it is, right?
Sure.
But then you think about something, but then you're also aware about what you're thinking. So that would mean that you aren't actually the thought itself. You're being aware of the thought. So then that awareness, like that's the real you. But then what is that? Because that awareness in a sense is still separate from your personality and who you think you are, because most of who you think you are is because of your subconscious mind and all the programs that have put into it from your life experiences. So it's like, who are you?
That's dude, that's one of my favorite things. And it's something that I've been trying really hard to work on in my own life, because like I having done all of the content creation stuff for a while now, I've kind of lost touch with my spiritual side to a degree. Um, and it's like I've been doing some serious just consciousness work. Um, and it's super interesting to see 'cause like one of the practices that I learned is you can literally ask yourself in your head, what is my next thought going to be? And then you can just focus your full attention on catching that next thought the second that it comes out. And it's crazy because it literally just creates a gap, in your thinking. And then you're just there, you're present. And I think that's the being or consciousness or whatever you'd like to call it that we actually are. Um, that stuff is so cool to me, man. Like, I think it's so interesting just to see, like, because we do live in a world today where people are dominated by their thoughts, their mental activity, it controls them in a lot of people's cases. Um, and it's very difficult to get away from that. It really takes like some actual effort and work and repetition of certain practices to even get a conscious like break in that thought stream, you know? Um, but yeah, that's one of the ones that I love is what is my next thought going to be? And then you just wait and you see it and you catch it. And then you realize that you're the one that caught it, not the thought itself.
Right.
That stuff's so cool to me. But on the front of just like who are we really and like the power of thought versus consciousness, um, something that I think is super cool. Like if you close your hand, right, and you think super hard, you're sending thoughts to your hand, open, open, open. It doesn't open.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes to show how powerful your thought actually is versus like the actual existence of you and your being and whatever you'd like to call it. It's next to impossible to put a word on it. But I just think like when a person can tap into that I'll call it being, um, it like it works wonders, man. Like that's the craziest shift ever. Um, and with that comes like you're not so tied down and I guess attached to all the external situations in your life. It's like, damn, I am this thing that is just so cool and like life becomes a much more beautiful place when you stop letting the bullshit get to you and you gotta tune into that consciousness.
Yeah, 100%. And then, I mean, people could also say to you, and like, just like one of the other like crazy things about the mind is like, Ben, don't think about a dog right now. What you just think about a dog. So it's like this just this crazy stuff. And they also talk about in like spirituality and this type of stuff. They talk about stuff called shadow work, which I'm sure you've heard of. Where like realizing that we all have these dark sides to us and these bad parts about us that we have to work on. And it's not necessarily you're going to eradicate all of that, because there's always going to be dark parts of you. You can't completely eliminate that side of you. It's kind of like the duality of life. It's like you have good and bad within inside of you. It's like one can be more than the other 100%, but even if your good is 99% and your bad 1%, there's still the 1%.
Yep.
And I think we have so much control over that, but at the same time, sometimes we don't if we're not aware. I think this is a very extreme example, but do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
Of course.
Like, so like an example he gave is like you think like I could think and say to myself right now, and you could say to yourself right now, I would never be a Nazi. I could never do what they did to people in the Holocaust and stuff. But what he was trying to explain, and of course, this is a very extreme example, but you being you now and put under the right circumstances for the right amount of time, you believe that you'd never be able to do something like that? You could. And that's not like, okay, that's in the back of my mind. It's like
Right.
you just being a human, it's like you have the potential to do that. Like, do you really think every single German soldier believed fully in what they were doing?
Right.
It's like no, but they did it anyway.
Right. Because it's also like when a crowd of people is doing something, it's human nature to join in with that. And especially like in that type of situation, it's like your life's at risk, your family's life's at risk. And even if there's like just that shred of bad in you that will allow you to kind of do those terrible things, like it's going to take hold, and that's just human nature. And I think that kind of leads me to the discussion of, I guess, toxic positivity, um, because there's like, there's probably a million books out there that have something like positive in the title of them, um, and that's a very dangerous thing, because what I like in my own experience, what I did for a while is I just convinced myself that everything is good and I'm happy and whatever, but until you actually like take a real look at those demons that you have and you get to know them, and then you find a way to have control over them, no amount of wishing it away and focusing on the good is going to truly, extradite those things from your being, or at least not from your being rather, but from the way that you live your life,
Yeah, you can really try to focus on the positive and have a really good week. But the second someone says that one thing that used to piss you off, it's gonna piss you off still because you haven't done the work to make it so that it won't piss you off, and you're in control of your emotions.
Right. No, that's huge. And it's like a very, I don't know, it's a very tentative subject for a lot of people, I think, because they'd like to believe that if you believe things are all good, then that makes things all good, you know? And to some degree, I definitely think that's true. If you are a person who errs on the positive side of life and you have a generally positive outlook on the world around you and on yourself, that will be very closely reflected in how your life plays out, you know? But without actually doing the inner work to conquer those demons, and to resolve the issues of your past, it's bound to resurface again at some point, Um, and that's so in my experience, like that's where meditation has come in really helpful. Is that it allows me to just kind of sit with my thoughts for a while and not necessarily react to them, but just to observe them and recognize that they're there, and then also recognize that they don't have any control over me, unless I allow them to. Um, which kind of, I guess, ties back into our consciousness talk. But it's like those that bad side of being that every person has, you know, it has control if you let it, But there are like specific proven tactics that a person can implement into their lives to overcome those things.
Absolutely. How do you think people can start to develop self-love?
That's my favorite question in the world. So in my personal experience, the way that it started was by forming new beliefs. You know, I for the longest time, like I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I did lemonade stands, I sold duct tape wallets, whatever, you name it. Um, but then I talked earlier about how I was in a really dark place, and that I guess that kind of spark had been extinguished, or so it seemed, you know, and it was like, okay, I know in my heart that I am meant for more than this. I know that I want a life that I feel is worth living and an impact and to make the world around me a better place. So why am I acting in ways that don't serve that purpose? Um, so it starts with the knowing that just because you're alive, just because you're human, just because you are here, you're deserving of a good life. And I stress it a lot. Like everybody has done messed up things. Everyone's had terrible things happen to them. That's part of life. But if you let those things convince you that you aren't worthy of a beautiful life, of beautiful things happening in your life, then you've shot yourself in the foot before you've even started. Because until like because with that sense of belief comes the desire to want to change. And that's where it all starts, and it's a snowball from there. It's like you believe that you're meant for more. And so you're going to go out and you're going to find things that help you get that more. So the first the first thing is belief in yourself, in the fact that you're meant for more than you currently have. The next thing I would say is habits. I I very like specifically just preached habits for a while because the impact that like implementing better habits and getting rid of old ones has had on my life is so profound. Like I like in a matter of a couple of months, I turned my entire life around by literally going to the gym, journaling, meditation, reading. Like, and obviously, I've implemented more things along the way, but it's that simple. You know, you do things to take care of your body, you do things to take care of your mind, and you're in an upward spiral. You know, combine that with the belief systems that you've already previously built, you're well on track to living the life that you dream of. You know, and a life that you're proud of. Um, so yeah, I would say those are the two things: core habits that serve you, and a belief system um, that in which you know that you're deserving of a good life.
Yeah, and I mean, and people also have to realize that, you know, that's gonna take time, and that's not a bad thing because it's going to pay off for the rest of your life. But, you know, a lot of people have trouble with committing to something and spending time doing things and changing their habits and implementing new ones. But, you know, like I just said, in the long run, all of that is going to pay off. You know, it's you can't let yourself get into a rut and realize you're in the rut, and you're technically consciously deciding to stay in that if you don't then make the habits and the changes that you need.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's become commonplace, you know. And it's like if you're in hell, if your life sucks, like if you don't have anything good going for you, why would you stay there? You know, why would you make? And I think for a lot of people, they don't feel as though they have a choice. But I hope after watching this, they realize that they do. You know, you have a choice to put one foot in front of the other and take a step forward, and inch by inch by inch get out of hell. You know, because if you're not doing whatever unique steps are required in your own life, whether they're what I preach or what you preach or something completely different, you know, if you're not taking any steps at all, if you're doing nothing to change your situation, then that means that you are making a conscious choice to stay stuck in that situation. Um, and I think it kind of comes down to like the responsibility aspect that we talked about earlier. It's like there's some expectation that there's going to be someone else that comes and saves you.
Mhm.
There's not. There's not. There might be people who are willing to give you the tools and help you stay accountable or whatever their role may be, act as a signpost, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's on you to put in the work if required to change your life.
Yeah, because say, like you just said, so many of us are waiting for that person to come. But and you know, for the 1 in 100 people, someone might come and, you know, completely change your life. But for most people, it's like that person isn't going to come because most people are going to look at you and see that your life is horrible and you're not doing anything to fix it. They're going to be like, I don't want to hang around this guy. Like,
Yeah.
he's just going to bring me down.
Yeah.
So, you know, that being said, Ben, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great conversation.
This has been a great conversation. I'd love to do it again sometime. You seem like a great dude, and yeah, I really look forward to seeing how this turns out, man.
Hey, 100%. Where can people check you out?
On Instagram at Ben Fogelgren, my name. Yeah, or on TikTok if you'd so choose. At Ben Fogy. But primarily Instagram. And yeah, man, awesome. This
All
has been a
right.
blast,
Awesome.
and look forward to talking more sometime soon. All right.
100%. We'll catch you guys in the next one.